Good evening. I'd like to call this regular school board meeting to order. It is Monday, October 16th, 2023 at 5:15 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room of the middle school. I'd like to welcome all those in the audience tonight. Thank you for coming. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on our agenda, does the board have any conflicts of interest to declare for this meeting? Any conflicts of interest? Any conflicts of interest? If not, moving on, school board norms. Jason, would you please read the school board norms?
The board developed norms are to share and respect opinions and speak with a united voice once a decision has been reached, execute all duties of the school board in compliance with North Dakota Century Code, properly prepare for meetings, and commit to assessing board effectiveness and ensure high-quality governance for all stakeholders.
Thank you, Jason. We have no public communication tonight. Moving on to our consent agenda. At any time, a board member can remove something from the consent agenda. It does not need a second. Is there anything you'd like removed? Or any questions on anything? Anything you'd like removed? If not, is there a motion? Motion by Aaron, second by Steve. We have a motion and consent, and a second for the consent agenda. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? There being no discussion, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Moving on to our regular agenda. Under recognition, we have an award tonight for Ms. Heidi Boudreau. Melissa, would you read that award, please? And Heidi, please come forward.
On September 19th, Heidi Boudreau was unanimously voted as the North Dakota Special Education Director of the Year by the North Dakota Special Education Directors Study Council. The council is made up of special education directors from across the state of North Dakota. Ms. Boudreau is the Special Education Director for the James River Special Education Cooperative, which encompasses the districts of Edgeley, Ellendale, Culm, Jamestown, Lemoore, Litchfield, Marion, Medina, and Montpelier. She has been with the James River Special Education Cooperative for 6 years. Prior to becoming the Special Education Director, she was a special education teacher in North Dakota and Montana. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Heidi. Moving on to our 10 years of service. Jamie, would you read those? And as your name is called, please come forward, and we have an item here for you. And we'll take a picture.
10 years of service to JPS School District is Dr. Rob Lack. Jane Lord. Denise Tom. Justin Connell. Danielle Giesler. Michael Smith. Jada Anderson. And Renee Ask.
Moving on our agenda, nothing under correspondence, under reports. Student council report, great. Is it Hattie? Yep, come on up and introduce yourself, and we look forward to your report.
Okay, I'm Hattie McDonald. I'm a junior at Jamestown High School, and I'm co-president of Student Council, and I only have 2 things today. So Student Council will be holding a blood drive on November 1st from 8:30 to 2 in the high school gym. And then we were also thinking of possibly holding a Halloween activity, but we have yet to get it approved. Thank you.
We appreciate our student council report, so thank you very much. Under board education, number 1, strategic competency, Dean of Students update, and I believe we have Mrs. Eckert and Mr. Meisner. Please come forward to the mic.
First, thank you for having me. I'm Jeff Meisner. I'm currently the Dean of Students at Washington and Louis L'Amour Elementary Schools. I was asked by Dr. Leck to volunteer some of the positive aspects as well as some of the challenges that this position has presented since it's still in its infancy in the district. So some of the advantages, the first thing that I guess I thought of was the fact that despite the fact that I've been teaching, I kind of get lost in the numbers. I think about 25, 26 years. It's been a challenge, but one of the things that I've been able to rely on is the fact that I do work with Mr. Eddie Delzer, who is an experienced principal. So I've been able to get a lot of practical advice from him as necessary. And again, it's been comforting knowing that I have that to fall back on in this situation. With my 25, again, plus years, and the fact that I have been an activity director, there still are a lot of differences that come up that I've relied on him for. One of the other advantages that the district presents that I've taken advantage of, and Christy Grounds is here, I've called her quite a few times, is the central office staff. I am finally kind of learning which one to call, not to call the wrong person about the wrong thing, but I've leaned on them pretty heavily prior to school and during the year as to some minor questions, but again, I've really relied on them to give me some insight and some direction on some basic administrative policies and things like that. Some of the other building principals and admin. I do have a relationship with some of the elementary principals, some more than others that I've cultivated over the years. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, to name 2 in particular, and I've kind of leaned on them from time to time. Mrs. Anderson being a first-year principal as well. We're somewhat in the same boat, and we've kind of bounced ideas off of each other plenty of different times, as well as Mr. Gaylor and Dr. Leck. I feel like our admin in this district has been very open to some of the trivial things that they probably perceive my questions as being, but I've never been deterred by simple yes or no answers, and I've always been encouraged to contact them, again, as well as central office, and they've made me feel welcomed and valued in that perspective. And the last thing I could really think of off the top of my head was the cooperation with the staff at Washington and Louis L'Amour. This being, a new concept to the district, and in these 2 schools in particular, the staff has been really cordial and accommodating. At least that's how they've made me feel. There have been plenty of situations that, I haven't known the answer to, but I know that I have plenty of people to call and lean on, and the staff at those 2 elementaries has been great. Today, for example, we were very short-staffed, and I was at Washington, and we had a lot of people that were more than willing to step up, take on some added responsibilities, and show their flexibility. So that's one thing that I can really lean on, is the fact that I work in 2 really great schools with really good staff. Some of the challenges. Going back and forth from school to school gets to be a little hectic. And just keeping up on my schedule, for example, last week I was at Washington 3 days and Louis 2 days, and it was Washington, Louis, Washington, Louis, Washington. Well, that set a nice rhythm, so I didn't forget where I was supposed to go. But there's times where, it's not an ideal situation, but this isn't, an ideal situation. It's a new thing to the district. But a lot of times you'll start something at one school and then you might not be there for a couple days. So some of those things, it's not an ideal situation, and it creates, a bit of a hectic thing. But Mr. Delzer and I have definitely been open to communicating, and those situations have made us even communicate at a higher level, I should say, to try and retain some amount of consistency between the two schools. And again, this is an issue that is district-wide, and that's a lack of paraprofessionals. And that's something, it's not just immune or something that's central to Washington or Louis. It's, in talking to other principals, it's hard to get paras and hard to retain paras. And so that's probably been one of the biggest challenges. I guess I never realized, and it's, I have no problem doing this, how many different roles a principal has to fill in a day. I guess I never paid attention to those things necessarily as a classroom teacher. But yeah, we have a hard time, with staffing issues at the paraprofessional level. And again, the last thing that I wrote down was just some of the administrative things that I wasn't aware of, that kind of come up on a day-to-day basis. But again, it's nothing that has been, at least from my perspective, something that's been unmanageable, and I do have the luxury of having a pretty good relationship with the majority of the principals. I've gotten to know them pretty well, and I've been able to lean on them and get a lot of practical experience or a lot of knowledge and tips from them. So yeah, those are some of the things that have come up as far as positives and hurdles and things like that, but a lot more positives than negatives, definitely. And I've been very grateful for the experience. So if anyone has any questions or anything about,
Any questions from Mr. Mize?
glad to take those.
Aaron.
Yes.
I got a question. So how has the response from the community been in regards to this trial position here?
As far as what I've heard, good. But, I think a lot of times, in any district would like, it's not a secret that every district wants one principal, one person in place to be that one person to go to where you don't have, I don't know, too many cooks in the kitchen, however you want to say it. But I guess I haven't encountered any negative remarks, I guess, but those things haven't come to me yet. So it's been good so far.
Jason?
Yes, and thank you also for the flexibility and maybe not knowing where you're going when you wake up that morning or what have you. But a question I would have is, you brought up that this situation is new to us. In retrospect, and either one of you can answer this, in retrospect, what would be one thing that either Dr. Leck or the central office or the board could do to make a transition into this even easier?
That's a good question, and it's something I somewhat alluded to, and it's a conversation that obviously, will include Dr. Leck and Mr. Delzer. I like multiple days at the same school, in a row. It's to me, it's, and Mr. Delzer's kind of, as the lead principal, he's kind of set the tone for, okay, next week you'll take this IEP and I'll take this 504 and that'll put you at this school, and then I'll be at this school. So he's been very open about that. But that would probably be the one thing that you kind of, that comfort level at a school before, you're getting there and all of a sudden you might be gone the next 2 days. So that's something with this current Dean of Students that I would like to see a little bit more. And I think, that's one thing that even some of the teachers have talked to me a little bit about is there a chance that you could be here a week, or Mr. Delzer could be here for a week, and then that weekend would allow for a natural transition to possibly the other admin? So I guess that would be my response to that.
And I have some comments too, but maybe I'll present first and then.
Okay, sounds good. Diane?
I really appreciate you stepping into this role and being so enthusiastic. And my question is, of course, why we came up with this position.
Absolutely.
And I'm wondering, I know you're pretty fresh to it, but do you see it as a natural and informative way to segue into a principal's position? Do you think it's something that we should look at for years to come?
Well, you know, to use me as an example, you know, and this has been about an 8-week, you know, but actually, you know, the job started before school started. But it's really what I was looking for. So, I mean, as far as from my perspective, is it everything I thought it would be in a person that was looking to possibly transition into admin, but not 100% sure, you know, because I really like, I don't think I have hidden this with the fact that I really like my teaching position as well. And so this was kind of a risk for me, but not so much knowing that I have that to go back to. But I definitely think that in the 8 weeks that I haven't regretted it for a minute. I think it's been a great learning experience. And for me personally, it's only kind of strengthened the fact that, yeah, this is probably what I'd like to do. I'm not sure if I answered your question. I kind of got off on a tangent a bit.
I just wondered if it was an effective program for nurturing potential administrators.
I would say 100%. If I were to step aside from this position now, I know a lot more and appreciate a lot more about the administrative side than I ever thought I would learn this quickly. So I think it's been invaluable, absolutely. Even if I decide to go back to the classroom, I think I've gained a much better understanding and perspective of the admin side.
Any other questions for the board?
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Meisner. And maybe just stay for a few more minutes in case any questions circle back around, if you would, please. Thank you.
He stole a lot of my thunder, but I'll continue on with where he's at. I again want to thank the school board for the opportunity to be able to be the dean of students at both JVCTC and the high school. I've enjoyed that opportunity. I'm going to maybe talk more about a personal approach of how this has impacted me, so it may not be the same for like what you had asked, if that would be the same for everybody else. For me personally, it was an opportunity to try something that I've always thought about, but probably would not have. The reason I say that is I agree with Jeff. I absolutely love teaching, and I've thought about administrative roles, and people have said, you should be looking at going into that. And I was like, no, I love the classroom too much, and I know what I'm doing in the classroom, where this was a little bit on the fearful side. And when this position came up and Mr. Gaylor took the continuous improvement director, and I'd heard Mr. Heinert was going to be moving over there, I thought, the Career Center, I think that would be a great opportunity to try some admin and just get my feet wet in it. And I agree with Mr. Meisner too. It has been a wonderful experience so far. Granted, we're still probably in the honeymoon phase, so we'll see what it is at the end of the year. But again, I don't know if I would have maybe taken that opportunity if there wouldn't have been a dean of students role, where the comfort of if you get done and you don't enjoy this and it's something you don't want to, you have your classroom back. So to me, it was a no-brainer. Yes, try this on out. So I will add to it that one of the things I was dreading about being an administrator was like lunchroom supervision and detentions and dealing with students that way. And I don't know why I was dreading it. Yes, it's a difficult conversation, but I actually really enjoy the lunchtime because I get a chance to visit with students that I didn't maybe have in class, that I don't know. And that was one of the concerns I had of going from a teacher into the admin role of how do I still keep those wonderful relationships that you have with students. And I will say this role has increased those relationships, and I've added my peers, and I've added the people that I work with. So I've been really appreciative of that. The James Valley Career and Tech Center has awesome instructors, just like the high school does, and I get to go in and observe them. And I'm already thinking if I went back to the classroom, I'm stealing that idea. I mean, I'm going to share that idea, and share that idea. So there's a lot of growth that I've had professionally just within the short 8 weeks that we've had of getting into classrooms and seeing and observing students in different roles and teachers of what they are doing. And just getting a deeper understanding of the systems, like Jeff had mentioned. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes on throughout the day, and it is very busy. I have not had a day where I've been bored and had to sit and like, what am I going to do? Twiddle my thumbs. With the exception of the very first day. I didn't know what to do that day, but quickly found out things to do. One of the opportunities that maybe is different than what Mr. Meisner had for my role is I was allowed to do coaching this fall. with the cross-country team. I also have a son in soccer, so I've been very busy with things, and learning how to manage my time was another box I would say I've checked. I've had to be very efficient with time to get into classrooms, plus learn the roles, which is a lot, like Jeff said, that goes into those. And I visited with the other coaches that I coach with and just asked for some feedback, because there have been some conflicts with the coaching that have come up. Obviously with cross country, we have meets sometimes that will hit during the week. There's some on the weekend, so I made for long weeks that way. But if I had to miss school, that was time I was pulled out of either building that I was supposed to be in. And I want to go back to your question that you'd kind of asked, like, what is the role and do I think we should continue with that? I think both Jeff and I agree that 2 thumbs up on it, but I would also venture that maybe the people that we work with should be asked some of those questions. And I did ask that of Coach Gardner, and I also asked of the building that I'm in now, of what are some pros and cons that you've come up with. So I'll address a few of those. Coach Gardner mentioned, he goes, I think if it was a person that was new to the field of coaching or does not have a lot of experience, which as you can tell, I'm very experienced at what I do, that maybe it wouldn't have gone as well. And he's very easy to work with, so allowed if there was certain times I couldn't be at something, I tried to make it to every meet. Unfortunately, actually Wednesday, I will not be able to be at the meet because we have training that will be going on. NDCEL is in Bismarck, and I'll be attending that with some mentor training pieces. But he's been very good about that, and there's only 2 races, so I don't feel horrible about having to miss those days. But he did mention that it would be difficult if it weren't that way. I stayed at work until 3:45, so I missed the beginning of practice. But I thought that worked out well because as I did lunch supervision, many of those athletes were at lunch, so I got a chance to touch base with them, which is what that valuable time of the beginning of practice when warm-ups and things are. So I feel like we were able to juggle that pretty well. And then, like I said, just time out of the building I know was difficult for the people that are in my building when they're relying on having an administrator there if something were to come up. So I know that is one of the things that they would say is probably a hurdle. Again, the areas of challenges or hurdles with the Career and Tech Center, with having last spring Mr. Heinert being pulled out of the building to go over to the high school, I think that put a big strain on them. And then one of the comments I had heard too of like, well, now we have somebody new coming in that doesn't know the role, and Mr. Heinert, like Jeff said, he's relying on different people to get advice from. I think that was a challenge, or is still a challenge for my position. I have Mr. Heinert, Mr. Beta, and Mr. Gaylor were my main resources, new to their roles. So it's kind of a challenge and a fine line to walk of, I don't want to disturb them from their jobs, but I also need questions answered, and just trying to find a way to communicate that the best. And we've come up with a good system of when to text and when to email and when to give a phone call. So it's been, and again, another learning experience with those pieces. Another challenge I feel personally was leaving my English department shorthanded and putting them into a role where they did overloads to fill the position that I would have had. So that was something that did kind of weigh on me when I was making that decision. And then one of the other challenges, I guess, that I wasn't anticipating as much is just the extra time in the evenings for supervision of sporting events. Like I mentioned, my son is in soccer, so I gladly volunteered for those ones to help out with supervision. But football and whatnot, it got to be some late nights, and I wasn't used to that. So just physically, that's a long day when I'm showing up at work early because I want to make sure I get things ready for the day, and then you're going till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Some of those were very long days. But again, I have really enjoyed, and like I said, I don't know if I would have taken that opportunity. It's kind of my biggest takeaway of if I would have made that leap. And I'm with Jeff in it that, yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I could see that as something. Could I see myself in the classroom? Absolutely. I love it there. But could I see myself in an admin role? Absolutely. Now I've got a decision to kind of make. But did I answer all the questions that you guys had asked previously? Is there anything else?
Thank you, Mrs. Ecker. Jamie, go ahead.
Excuse me, was your schedule kind of like every other day as well in the two
Thanks
two
for
buildings?
asking. So on Tuesday mornings and Friday mornings, I go over roughly a little before 8 o'clock and supervise over at the high school, and every day I'm there for lunch supervision. Otherwise, the rest of the time I'm at the Career and Technical Center.
And do you feel that any changes in that scheduling would be more beneficial to you?
We did make a slight change. I was supposed to be there on Fridays, and that's a day where our administrative assistant needs to run and do some errands with checks and depositing the business end piece. And I will just give a shout out to her as well. Sheila has been very helpful in helping me learn the roles of the new job. So I don't know if that would be the case. I mean, if you could be at the Career Center full-time, that would be ideal, but I realize that's not what the role is. But since you brought that up, one of the other pieces that I kind of heard from feedback from others is if this were a position at the Career and Tech Center, that would be really a heavy lift to do because it is very technical. I mean, there's different aspects to that job than there is over at the high school as an assistant principal, where it maybe deals more with the day-to-day type things where the Career and Tech Center has that budget issue to it, and I don't know how easy that would be to train somebody in new each time, where that might fit more over at the high school as an assistant with the principal there and working on those pieces. That was just some feedback that I did here, because I know it has been a strain on the Career and Tech Center with the different turnover of getting people to know the job and position. Does that answer what you were asking? Okay, thanks. Thanks for asking that.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Mr. Meisner and Mrs. Eckert. We appreciate you coming and sharing. It was a request from the board to have an update, and so we appreciate your time for this. No other questions? Moving on. Dr. Leck, your superintendent's report, please.
Thank you. You do have my written report. Earlier in the consent agenda, you approved Choice Ready grants, and I wanted to just touch base quickly on those priorities for those grants. So there will be two, one for the high school, one for the James Valley Career and Tech Center. So for Jamestown High School's application, the priorities are increasing opportunities for the capstone experience, developing and implementing a system for tracking 21st century skills related to a portrait of a graduate, and increasing ASVAB scores through providing more preparation resources. In JVCTC, we had a consortium advisory meeting last week, and that the priorities based on those conversations just reaffirmed that we want to expand the work-based learning program. That is Mr. Wagon. If we had some expansion of Mr. Wagon's responsibilities with that, supporting drone racing, a new extracurricular activity that we're working through, and then ASE certification opportunities and resources for getting that certification in ASE. Pledge securities, just informational, that will be just listing pledge securities once and just including all of those in one rather than, even though it's in the consent agenda, you'll notice that that looks a little bit different. Emergency planning and training, we've done a lot of work over the last few months, at the beginning of the school year. I want to recognize Mr. Gaylor and all the work that he's done related to getting the regional emergency planning organized. We hosted that. We decided that we wanted to make sure that this was available to regional schools as well, not just us. If we were going to take time to do this training, get these protocols written and revised, it makes an awful lot of sense for that to be consistent from the law enforcement end, but also it makes sense to, no one of us is as smart as all of us. When we all get together and we're working on those things, it's much more efficient for those smaller schools in our region that maybe just don't have those resources. So I know that they were glad to be involved in that as well. We invited all public and private schools within our area, with most of those attending. We spent a lot of time initially on developing protocols at the classroom level, at the building level, at the district level, and using the expertise in the room from law enforcement. I want to recognize our emergency personnel that came and helped facilitate these discussions. And law enforcement, we had police, sheriff's department, highway patrol, all represented, and they gave really excellent feedback on the different protocols, but just how they might view a situation is invaluable to us, as we don't have that level of expertise. So having them in that room was really very valuable. We really saw that in the practice activities. We had different scenarios that were created, and we had to, by table, break down, well, what would you do in this building? What would you do in this circumstance? If this happened, what would be the response? And we had a chance to, we were in different stakeholder groups, and so we were kind of dispersed evenly. And so school people, law enforcement, emergency services, and we were able to really glean a lot from that experience together, and I thought it was very, very valuable, and we can't thank enough those different groups of experts that lent their knowledge to us. I think it made our plan better, and so we're definitely thankful that they took their time. So commitments to safety that have been completed or in the process. We have new safety protocols at JHS and JVCTC. I know one of the questions that came up often is, we lock doors, we have a secure building at every site except for that one. Well, now that is, a secured site. We are in the process of renovating doors, entryway at JHS. So that has been a big positive. Some more of that is coming yet at the end of this month. District-wide application of safety supplies. We put a consistent safety bucket in every room that has the same supplies. In the past, that's kind of been, it varied by school. This school had this and this school had that. We've made that more consistent, and Adam's done a really good job of coordinating all of that. Emergency protocol flip books are being printed, so those are consistent. The new revised protocols that we just talked about, those are being printed as we speak, and we'll get that additional, get those flip books back in the classroom. We have additional grants that we're working on and doing some more training for safety protocols coming up in November. So moving on, McKinney-Vento, I shared with you a training that a professional development is very brief. I hope you had a chance to look at it, but in McKinney-Vento, that is our homeless program. And I thought Mrs. Anderson did a really wonderful job of outlining that professional learning activity for staff. Sometimes we have a very narrow view when we say homeless, what constitutes a homeless student. And federally, it's much, much broader than that. And I thought she did a great job of explaining that. So when we have McKinney-Vento dollars, that we're using them as efficiently and effectively as we can. Because I think it's an underutilized resource across the state, not just in Jamestown, but McKinney-Vento dollars. And I think as the more aware we become of the different areas we could do, and I think Mrs. Anderson has really done a great job in helping bring awareness to McKinney-Vento, how it could be used, and she's been very active, not just at Roosevelt, but every building, talking about homelessness and how those dollars can be used to support all kids. So I definitely want to make sure that she is recognized for that. Board education, you had an annual plan that we updated. That was in the consent agenda. Culinary arts, we've had some preliminary discussions with the Art Center and working collaboratively. We've had in the last couple of years, we've really made a more focused effort to look to community partners first when we're talking about new programs. We're the size of community where we have a lot of opportunity, but we're not large enough that we can do it on our own. And I think working with a community partner almost always is the best option for us, and this became available. We've had some preliminary discussions with the Art Center. They're looking to expand. Is there a way that we can both, get those resources working together and provide the same for us, but do it in a more cost-effective manner and provide something for the Art Center that they also need? I think there's a path there, but we're in the infancy of that discussion. But I think it's something that has potential that we're excited to talk about. More will be coming as necessary, and of course, board action to be required if we get to a certain leverage point where we want to pursue that. But I'm just making you aware of it for now. I did include a draft of the conflict of interest form that I referenced at a previous board report. And if that's something that you'd like to pursue, just give me that direction and I'll create it I'll get that as an exhibit and include it into agendas in the future. I do think it consolidates and makes that a little more clear, specifically about what constitutes a conflict, but what the process is for us as well. The last thing I have, and then I'll pause for questions, is substitute teachers. We currently have 37 active substitutes that work with our teachers and work with our students. But even with those 37, about 20% of the vacancies that we have go unfilled. So if there are individuals There has been greater flexibility in the last few years with substitute teachers. If there is interest in becoming a substitute, 252-1950. You can talk with Stacy Jampgard, who's our HR generalist, Adam Gaylor, continuous improvement director, myself, and we'd be happy to talk you through what that might look like and how you could become certified. But we absolutely need people's help. We have 37 wonderful substitute teachers that do a lot of work for us, but if we had a few more, we may be closer to filling some of those positions that go unfilled. When a substitute teaching position goes unfilled, that means a teacher has to cover. And these are already people that need time to plan. They need that time already. They're always willing to help out, and they're wonderful, but it just makes it harder. So if there's people that are interested in learning a little bit more about it, just reach out to us, and we'd be happy to share more. But with that, I would stand for questions.
Dan?
Do you think the increase in the pay for the substitute teachers has allowed more positions to be filled? Are you seeing that data?
You know, I don't have some context to that. I think that's a great question. A few weeks of data, I don't know if we have enough to say definitively yes or no. The feedback I've gotten from our substitute teachers has been positive, that they have appreciated that additional, but does it stop them from going somewhere else and staying here? I don't have the data that supports that. Anecdotally, I would say I'm sure that it does, and I think they appreciate that. But we want to make it as attractive as possible so individuals would be willing to take on some of those positions, whether they're new to the subbing or whether they're veteran people that are just deciding to work here more often.
Thank you, Dan. As long as you are on that subject, I saw your question, and can you just, for the public watching, if they're like, well, I wonder what what are some of the requirements for a substitute teacher? I might be interested. Just give a.
So what I will do, if this is all right with the board, I will write something up and then we'll present it in the next board report so people can see all of those steps. That might be easier to follow than just an oral.
Sounds great.
But we'll break that down a little bit more.
We might as well share what, the
Yep.
pay and what some of the requirements are for, but in the meantime, they can contact central office.
Absolutely, they can talk to us, and if they have any level of interest, we would love to talk them through what that looks like.
Diane?
Just wondering if the shortage is across the board, or is it more at the elementary or high school level?
I think it's across the board. The 37 that we have are really great substitutes, and they work K through 12 in all manner of areas. But I think we just need a few more. But I don't know if I would say targeted a certain area that is better or worse than others.
Any other questions? Aaron?
Yeah, I guess just in context of the conflict of interest form, I would support that provide that as an exhibit. I really appreciate the two different sections of the Century Code that are referenced directly in there, providing that definition and requirements for, getting around or approving for a vote with a conflict of interest. So,
Thank you, Aaron. Jason?
Just a thought. Any opportunity with you, Jay, in terms of some of the substitute issues? I realize they're not licensed teachers, but they need all kinds of hours of experience. What would be the legal, all that to that idea?
With the flexibility changes in the last few years, our UJ has become a place where we can go and get quite a few substitute teachers now. And I think perhaps maybe the path is to make sure that all of our UJ students are aware of the potential to make a little additional money by helping out in subbing. I think if that might be the best untapped, well, not untapped, because I think we get a lot of substitutes there, but accessing more of those students that could gain their substitute teaching license. In the past, we have actually paid for the application costs I should say reimbursed after they've worked a certain number of hours or a certain number of days, and that's something that we could look to again if there was interest in that. where we pay those costs up for people if they sub for us or agree to sub for us a certain number of times. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Leck. And if you want to just bring that to the next meeting, we can have a little more discussion about that and awareness. Moving on our agenda, F, old business, nothing under old business. G, new business. Number 1, activities, nothing under activities. Number 2, buildings and grounds. A, approval of a roof bid to Tech America in the amount of $581,162. Is there a motion? Motion by Dan. Is there a second? Second by Jason. We have a motion, a second for approval of roof bid to Tech America in the amount of $581,162. Any discussion? Any discussion? Aaron?
So this amount is greater than what is in the current capital projects plan for roofs. So what does that mean to the rest of the plan then, if this is approved?
So some of that would be spread out over next year's, in the next year also. It is higher than what we anticipated, but it is much lower than what had previously, what you rejected previously. So there is savings associated with that, but it would be spread out over the next
Multiple years.
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the hope is to get some of this done during summer time as well, so.
Yep. And this, thank you, this, this bid would be completed, or this project would be completed by August 1st, is what they had put forward in their proposal, which is good news.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? If not, we have a motion for approval of roof bid to Tech America in the amount of $581,162. Assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Number 3, curriculum assessment instruction, nothing under there. For finance, A, budget revisions. And there's also general fund balance and monthly financial reports for your information. But under A for budget revisions, is there a motion? Motion by Aaron. Is there a second? Second by Dan. We have a motion, a second for budget revisions. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Number 5, personnel. A, superintendent evaluation timeline. For your information, please complete those so Amy can put things together for us, and she will reach out to you if you don't have sections completed. Number 6, policy and procedures. A, approval of policies. Number 1, amended DBAA-AR criminal history record check screening procedure. 2, amended DGGA professional development plan. 3, amended GACG educational opportunities through sponsoring entities. Is there a motion? Motion by Steve. Is there a second? Second by Aaron. We have a motion, a second for 1 through 3. Any discussion? Any discussion? There being no discussion, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Tuition. A, approval of a tuition agreement for number 1, 8th and 9th and 7th grade Pingree Buchanan students to attend Jamestown Public School for the 2023 to 2024 school year. Is there a motion? Motion by Melissa. Is there a second? Second by Aaron. We have a motion, a second for 8th, 9th, and 7th grade Pingree Buchanan students to attend Jamestown Public School for the 2023 to 2024 school year. Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Dr. Luck?
If I could just make a comment to that, I apologize for the
Was there-
misstatement on the agenda. It is simply 8th and 9th grade students,
and-
not
okay.
7th, 8th, and 9th grade students. That's my mistake.
Okay, so just everyone comfortable with that? Just the 7th was kind of stuck in there, so I wasn't sure about that. So 8th and 9th grade. Okay. On number 8, under other, nothing under other. Items for future agenda. Any items for future agenda? Diane?
Yes, I don't want to rehash what has already happened with the fallout from January 31st, but I would like an update on what we're doing moving forward in terms of another student summit, in terms of maybe getting something into our curriculum that has to do with diversity tolerance, perhaps having the person from Fargo that fills that role for the Fargo School District come and speak with us. Anything, really, that shows that we are taking positive action and not just finding ourselves buried in the negative consequences that we suffered. I'd really appreciate hearing what's happening.
Yeah, we'd be happy to organize something for a future board meeting.
Thank you. And then, Dr. Luck, I thought you have the substitute teacher thing on your list as well to do that. Jamie?
I thought it was really great hearing from the Dean of Students tonight, and I was hoping that later in the year, when they have a few more weeks under their belt, they could also come back and share their perspectives at that time.
Yeah, maybe even after, like, I think it's a great idea, like after Christmas and into the next semester. That's a great idea. Get them through one. Yeah, I appreciated that too tonight. Anything else? Anything else? Okay, if not, if you think of something else, let Dr. Luck or myself know. Under meetings to be scheduled, we have the North Dakota School Board Association Convention October 26th and 27th in Bismarck. School board meeting on Monday, November 6th, 2023 at 5:15 in the Thompson Community Room in the middle school. And don't forget about our school board retreat is on Monday, November 13th, 2023 at 5:15 p.m. in the district office conference room, and we'll try to figure out some food for that. Dr. Luck.
I have one more that's not on here, but that is in the process of being scheduled. I emailed this morning to our strategic plan committee. We have a draft out of the strategic plan to that committee, but we need to have some more discussion on that. So that will be scheduled sometime between now and November 6th.
Yep, thank you. Any other meetings that we missed? Okay. If not, remember to do your monthly superintendent evaluation, Section 4, Curriculum and Student Support Services, and Section 6, Operations and Resource Management. There being no further business before the board, this meeting is adjourned.